Welcome to the Sureway English PTE Super Series, lecture number 4. Today's topic is multiple choice, choose multiple answers in the listening section. Make sure that you watch this video till the very end. This contains the perfect method, some excellent advice, and you will get some solid practice. So make sure that you watch this video till the very end. If you have any questions or any queries, please feel free to leave a comment. Let's get started with question number 1. I'll give you a few seconds to just have a quick look at the question and then we'll discuss it in detail. Okay, the very first thing that you should do when you are presented with a question of this type, on your screen you will first see the question and the options, and you will have about 7 seconds to have a look at them before the audio will start playing. So use those 7 seconds wisely to have a look at what the question is and what the options are. So in this case, if you look at the question, it says, which of the following would Bates recommend to someone suffering from poor eyesight? So these are the keywords, right? Poor eyesight and someone called Bates. And what would Bates recommend means what would Bates ask someone who has got poor eyesight to do from the list that is given. And then you can have a quick look at the options: black letters, glasses, sunlight, visualizing, shape of the eyeball. So just quickly a couple of letters from each of those options. When you do this, what will happen that when the audio starts playing, you can start listening for information related to the key points in the question, or you can start listening to the key points in the options. And then at that point of time, for example, as soon as you hear black letters in the audio, you know that it is something important. So if you are okay, you can quickly judge whether that option is correct or not, or you can take a note. And then later on, once the audio ends, you can come back and based upon your notes, you can answer the question. That's why it's very important that you use these 7 seconds wisely. Look at the options, look at the question, identify what are some of the key things that you need to listen for. Okay, let's start with the question. So here's your question and the options. I'll wait a few seconds before I start the audio. Okay, I'll start the audio now.
The Bates method is an alternative therapy aimed at improving eyesight. Eye care physician William Horatio Bates attributed nearly all sight problems to habitual strain of the eyes, and felt that glasses were harmful and never necessary. Bates self-published a book, Perfect Sight Without Glasses, as well as a magazine, Better Eyesight Magazine, and earlier collaborated with Bernard McFadden on a correspondence course, detailing his approach to helping people relax such strain, and thus, he claimed, improve their sight. His techniques centered on visualization and movement. He placed particular emphasis on imagining black letters and marks, and the movement of such. He also felt that exposing the eyes to sunlight would help alleviate the strain. Despite continued anecdotal reports of successful results, including well-publicized support by Aldous Huxley, Bates' techniques have not been objectively shown to improve eyesight. His main physiological proposition, that the eyeball changes shape to maintain focus, has consistently been contradicted by observation. In 1952, optometry professor Elwin Marg wrote of Bates, most of his claims and almost all of his theories have been considered false by practically all visual scientists. Marg concluded that the Bates method owed its popularity largely to flashes of clear vision experienced by many who followed it.
Okay, so that was our audio, and as we already guessed by reading the question that this will be something about eyesight, about poor eyesight, and then things to some what are the things that can be done to improve the poor eyesight. And that's what the lecture was, the audio was. It talks about someone who has some methods, and what those methods suggested that someone suffering from poor eyesight should do. Now my question to you is, did you take some notes? So as I had said earlier, that identify the key points, listen for those key points in the audio, and then corresponding to them, maybe you can take some notes. Or if you feel confident, then directly on the screen you can decide whether that option is correct or not. Now in this case, I've highlighted in gr green what I think are the key points. For example, aimed at improving eyesight. It tells us that these are the things for someone suffering from poor eyesight. And then more things that Bates thought that the problems were due to strain of the eyes. He published a book, a magazine, and then his techniques: visualization, emphasis on imagining letters, sunlight would alleviate or remove the strain. So you can guess that these are the things which he would ask someone who has got poor eyesight. Now let's find the answer. So based upon this, which of the following would Bates recommend to someone suffering from poor eyesight? Imagining black letters. Yes, that sounds like correct, because we have said, we identified that in the audio, imagining black letters. Wearing glasses. Now his book was Perfect Eyesight Without Glasses, okay, and he said that glasses were not necessary, so this is not something that he would recommend. Exposing the eyes to sunlight. Yes, he said that. Visualizing perfect eyesight. Now he did say that visualization was important, his techniques were based upon that, but he did not say that visualization, that you should visualize perfect eyesight. So that's not something that he would recommend. Change the shape of the eyeball to remove eye strain. Now he did say that the strain was, um, the eyesight problems were because of strain, and that under strain the eyeball changes the shape, but that's not what he recommended, so that was not an option again. Okay, so that was only a theory, but it was not a recommendation, because you can't ask someone to change the shape of the eyeball. So based upon that, the correct options are imagining black letters and exposing the eyes to sunlight. Sorry, the options are imagining black letters and exposing the eyes to sunlight. There you have it. So about option number 4, right? Now this was part of his technique, but he did not say that you should visualize perfect eyesight. In a lot of these multiple choice questions, you will find an option which will seem like it's almost 90% correct. Okay, but the option that you select, it has to be 100% correct based upon what you hear or what you read. So don't be in a hurry to just quickly match the words and pick an option. Okay, before we go forward, let's review what are the things that we have learned so far. First, that we need to read the question, then you need to read the option, use the 7 seconds wisely so that you know what are the things you need to listen for. As you listen, take notes. If you feel confident, yes, you can directly decide, pick the options from the screen, otherwise take some notes. Pay special attention to information related to question or options. So as soon as you hear a word which is similar to your keywords, pay special attention to that. After the audio ends, analyze each option one by one, and that way you will have your correct options. Alright, so now that we have done one question, we have seen what are the steps to do it perfectly. We will try another question. Before we start with this question, I just want you to I want to let you know that before we go further, I just want to remind you to subscribe to the channel. So make sure that you don't miss a super series lecture. There's also plenty of other free useful material on our YouTube channel, so have a look at the playlists. And if you are looking for a course option including a free course, check out the surewayenglish.com website. Okay, so with that out of the way, we can get to question number 2 now. Now, the same technique here. First read the question and the options. I'll give you a few seconds to do that. Alright, so that was about your 7 seconds. Now the question, we need to find a true statement about short story writing. So means when you are listening to the audio, listen to the statements made about short story writing, and then from the options you have to identify which of these seem to be the correct statements. And focuses on a self-contained incident, anecdote, apprenticeship, novel, parameters, countries, genres. So those are some of the keywords, right? So you have to listen for these things when you are listening to the audio. Alright, now let's start with the question. Here we go. 7 seconds to read, and then the audio will start. Here you go.
A short story is a piece of prose fiction that can be read in one sitting. Emerging from earlier oral storytelling traditions in the 17th century, the short story has grown to encompass a body of work so diverse as to defy easy characterization. At its most prototypical, the short story features a small cast of named characters, and focuses on a self-contained incident with the intent of evoking a single effect or mood. In doing so, short stories make use of plot, resonance, and other dynamic components to a far greater degree than is typical of an anecdote, yet to a far lesser degree than a novel. While the short story is largely distinct from the novel, authors of both generally draw from a common pool of literary techniques. Short stories have no set length. In terms of word count, there is no official demarcation between an anecdote, a short story, and a novel. Rather, the form's parameters are given by the rhetorical and practical context in which a given story is produced and considered, so that what constitutes a short story may differ between genres, countries, eras, and commentators. The short story has been considered both an apprenticeship form preceding more lengthy works, and a crafted form in its own right, collected together in books of similar length, price, and distribution to novels. Short story writers may define their works as part of the artistic and personal expression of the form.
Okay, that was the audio. And as we had guessed, right, this was about short story writing. And then I hope that you listened the audio for all the key points, identified the options, or took some notes. Yeah, that's my question. Did you take some notes? These are the highlights of the text. Piece of prose fiction, defy easy characterization, short story features a small cast of named characters, etc., etc. Lesser degree than a novel, dynamic components to a far greater degree than is typical of an anecdote, have no set length, etc. So these were all the key points. And as we had discussed, while listening to the audio, you can either directly identify what your options are, or you can take some notes, or you can also do a both. If it's an easy option, it immediately comes to you that yes, this is the right option or not, be done with it. If it's something more complicated, then just make a note and come back to it later. So let's find the answers now. Based on the audio, which of the following is a true statement about short story writing? It usually focuses on a self-contained incident. Right, so this is where it says the short story features a small cast of named characters and focuses on a self-contained incident. So that means this option, it's correct. And immediately while looking at the options and listening at the same time, I can identify this. It is another type of anecdote. Now, it says that the audio says that and other dynamic components to a far greater degree than is typical of an anecdote. Now, I would suggest for something, because this is a bit more complicated. So if you had noted down, what it actually says that, it's different than an anecdote. So it's not another type of an anecdote. So this is not a correct option. It's an apprenticeship that authors must take before writing longer works. Now it says that short story has been considered both an apprenticeship form preceding more lengthy works. So just like, a, an apprentice, it's like a training, something that you have to do before, you can do full professional work. So some people say that you have to write short stories before you can write, bigger works like novels. But it does not say that authors must take. So it's considered, but it's not something that is mandatory, that's necessary. It's often published alongside a novel. Now it says that collected together in books of similar length and distribution to novels. So short stories, they are put together, and books similar to novels, they are made out with a collection of short stories, but doesn't say that they're published alongside a novel. Its length and parameters can vary between countries and genres. Now here it says that what constitutes a short story, it differs between genres, countries, eras, etc. So that means this is a correct option. So yes, those were two correct options, 1 and 5. Now again, in option number 3 is the same kind of an option which we discussed in the last question, right? It looks that it's correct, it's somewhat correct, but it's not exactly the same thing. So always be careful of these kind of pitfalls. All right. So with that, we come to the end of this super series lecture. For more practice materials, just check the video description. For a free course and other course options and many other resources, check out the surewayenglish.com website. Remember to subscribe so that you don't miss the next super series lecture. All the best, keep studying, keep working hard. You will soon achieve your goal. All the best.